Morning.
Morning.
Vice Chair. There should be a packet with you already. All right, we have a quorum, why don't we get going? I know John is coming, but maybe we're running a few minutes late. So why don't we do this, let's just go right to the contracts update. So if you would.
Sure. So the first pay rec was received yesterday. We, as was told to us in advance, the pay rec this month consisted only of general conditions items, which were reviewed by us and by Vertex, and the values listed are coincide pretty much with, we don't have any issues with any of them, and, I believe that Vertex has.
John, we just started, Zoe was just talking about the.
Just
first
yes, we
payment.
can start.
We have no issues with the value as it stands for the general conditions items listed. And Vertex has also reviewed it, and we see no reason for you to not proceed with this.
So if you turn to your packet, it's towards the back, you will see the application for payment. It's application number 1. So just for the record, the original contract sum is $6,4,018,301. There's been no changes to the contract
To date.
to date. The payment requisition today is for $144,000, just under $145,000, of which there'll be a 5% retainage. So total payment due to date is $137,580.90. If you turn to the previous page to your application, I had spoke to Steve Theron yesterday. Steve had forwarded this email, and I'll read it. I forwarded this email in lieu of a formal letter. I will follow up with the letter. We recommend processing requisition number 1 in the amount of $137,580.90. I would like to review the schedule of values and schedule in more detail at the construction meeting on Friday. Please comment if you have any questions.
So, one of the issues has been that the contractor has not finalized his schedule of values completely. There are some line items still outstanding from certain sites. And, but we felt that it wouldn't hold up this pay rec because those elements do not affect
Right.
this pay rec. So therefore, that's why we approve it. Yes, we will be looking for an updated project schedule, which is a requirement for any monthly requisition. And we will do that on Friday. I'm assuming they did say that they would have all those items by Friday. Hopefully that's the case.
Well, I would suggest we entertain a motion to approve the requisition conditionally, and that it will be held pending the formal letter of recommendation and completion. But from our standpoint, we'll move it forward. The paperwork will catch up to it.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussions? Martha, any thoughts? John? Chief? Eric? John? Dave, any thoughts?
As far as.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Unanimous. Alright, anything else though?
Not really, with regards to that item.
Okay.
All the insurance in,
Yeah, all the documents are in.
is there a projected cash flow?
Well, this is, cash flow, I mean, overall.
Yeah, no, there's 12 months.
Yeah, I think actually Steve had mentioned that he's going to speak with them about trying to get that.
If there's like a 3-month look ahead on the
Yeah,
closed, I think that just helps everybody understand what.
yeah,
That's a good point, Eric. Why don't we do this? I know that the town had to do in conjunction with the committee, a projection of cash flow for bond purposes. I'll dig out a copy of that. That's our baseline right now until it gets updated, but maybe I'll get that over to you guys.
yeah.
So that,
I think that, Steve mentioned we were gonna try to get that from them.
It's a rough order of magnitude, but it's like
Yeah.
Belfair in terms of the.
well, certainly, it's their building schedule is gonna determine
Well,
the
I
cash.
think they're waiting to finish the schedule
Right,
and then they will link it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Alright. We had, customer practice, we had front loaded the first quarter, being that the likelihood of expending the most money for work completed or materials stored could be high, but. Alright, well, why don't we just jump back to the regular schedule then, Zell? I was looking to kill time while John was, coming in. If you turn to the second page of your packet, you have 2 pages there. I'm gonna let John Lucy, take it over from here. You would, John?
Anybody need a minute to read that first, or?
I can listen.
Basically, what we're looking at is, room number 111. Room number 111 is designated as a tech room, on the plans. And there's also a little alcove in the main hallway that's designated as report writing for the on-duty officers. What would be more conducive to efficiencies, and it's pretty much a critical space, that might have been overlooked in the first pass, is a place for the on-duty officers to go in, sit down at a desk, make phone calls, do investigatory practices, out of the mainstream. And what looked like the most non-impactual approach to resolving that would be to take away the designator as a tech room for room 111 and make that the report writing room. All the tech, all the IT and tech is all conduited and run up to the 3rd floor. There's a tech room up there. And the only thing that looks like is assigned to that tech room was the PBX and a switch that fed all the IT on the 1st floor. Being whereas the structure, I think the longest stretch on an IT, on a Cat 6 run is only gonna be maybe 150 feet at most from the tech room. There's not gonna be any data loss. We don't need that extra switch on the 1st floor. We can run everything from the 3rd floor tech room to the whole building. Now we have all our tech in one room. PBX, which also has to be accessing the network, is all in one room on the 3rd floor. That frees up 111 to be the report writing room that we don't have. It would appear, and I'm not an architect, so I'm not gonna pretend that I am, but it would appear that on first pass looking at it, that would eliminate some structure required to facilitate the little knockout area in the hallway in the current plans. So there'd be a little bit less construction there. And it also would appear that it would remove the need for a split unit for climate control in the downstairs tech room. So it should be, it might be a little bit more effective that way. Again, I'm not an architect, I don't know. It looks like the only thing we'd have to do as far as HVAC is add a short branch, because the main branch seems to run right by that area anyway, adding a branch to take care of that room. So in short, that's the philosophy and thought behind it. Moving all the tech up into one room, everything in one place, cleaner, easier to maintain, and it gives the on-duty officers a room to to conduct their business that's, more secluded and more appropriate to, for investigations and phone calls and meetings, that sort of thing.
One of the other things that I overlooked in the initial planning, but we had rooms for it in the initial planning, but then when we pared down, I overlooked it, was a spot for the harbor master to come in and during the day and do all his work, and spot for the animal control officer to make her phone calls. And we have a spot for that downstairs in the present station.
Right.
It's not very good, it's got equipment buzzing all around them, but they do have a spot for privacy. And my school resource officer in the morning before he goes off to schools generally sits in a room alone and makes phone calls to parents on different issues. And those are private matters that, 50, 60, 70% of report writing can be done at any workstation. And so that alcove made sense at the time, but I just oversight, they do need a private area, it is critical.
So Chief, it sounds like this is really operational critical versus it'd be nice.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Okay, I mean, that's usually the weighted measurement that, I personally use. So I think, certainly you've made a case that it's a necessity. The other two items are gonna be cost and schedule impact. Zell, can you follow up on that and see
Yes,
what?
we have already made arrangements for our MEP consultants to look at the what's involved with rerouting of those items. And one thing that I have to add is that in fact the upstairs communications room, which was actually two rooms, the communications room and the radio room next to it, which were separated for specific reasons. With the addition of moving that element upstairs with the switch, we actually are, due to the restrictions that we have, we're actually building a room to the other side, on the other side of the stair to facilitate that. We can't actually fit everything. They can't fit all of the elements into that same communication area and the radio room. It's now gonna be reconfigured so that there's a separate, another room on the other side of the stair in the attic. So there will be more construction in the attic to facilitate this.
We would be able to repurpose the split system for that addition.
Yeah, I don't think that's just the balancing of the elements, but I'm just saying that it's the planning actually be physically changed to facilitate that.
Well, if we can, you could get back to us
Oh,
with
yeah,
any
we're
cost
waiting,
and then what?
we're waiting for them to get us their documents, and we will also revise our documents and combine it all and
Send it out to BC for pricing.
Yep.
What would be the time frame on that? Is
we,
30 days a reasonable time
you
frame?
mean to get it back from them, or to,
Well, for you to generate what you need.
we've already done some of the work, not much, but we've initiated the work. That's why the engineers are working on it right now. But I think that we can probably have that out to the GC within the next couple of weeks, certainly. Next week or two.
So we should be able to generate enough detail for BC to
Oh, yeah, so.
run that. Problem is, they're gonna have to run that right through their filed subbidders
Oh, yeah.
to see what impact it's
It
gonna
affects
have.
everyone.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we,
So a month is probably reasonable.
well, it's
Certainly,
probably gonna be 6
it's even
weeks.
gonna be more.
Yeah.
It-
But it's early
by the time
enough
we
in the
get to
project
table it,
that-
until
yeah.
all the information comes in.
Yeah. So why don't we make a motion to move forward with investigating cost and schedule impact?
We make a motion that we proceed with the design and cost process for these changes.
Second. All right, any further discussion?
Do we think this is a Zell net zero or an add or subtract
Uh,
what's proposed?
you know, offhand, I'd have to say there's gonna be some ad. I don't think it's a necessary, I mean, there's gonna be some swapping of material and construction of room elements. In other words, what doesn't get built downstairs, it's gonna get built upstairs.
Yep.
So that might be a swap, but I'm not sure that the mechanical and electrical aspects are necessarily swapped. It's too early to tell. We haven't even gotten all the stuff back from the engineers.
You're gonna be adding a room, you're gonna be adding a door system, you're gonna be adding additional lighting, because you're creating.
Yeah, we're gonna
Standing
swap a
room.
door, fortunately. What we're gonna do is the radio room goes away as a separate entity
Okay.
and it gets reconfigured. So we're gonna we had two doors, and we're gonna take one of those doors and pull it over to the other side, where we're building that other closet. I think the drywall construction part is maybe a swap between the first and the attic.
So, but we've got a ghost in furniture, and then do a power data layout that may not necessarily be
Well, but
planned for that.
well, actually, the alcove, the report writing alcove element, which was basically built in
Right.
countertop, that just gets switched over into the room, so there's not much there.
Are you gonna do are you gonna put like just a workstation in there, or are you going to put in a desk so it can be?
It would be a desk, workstation, a desk and phone, and it would also probably be, maybe one filing cabinet, so each entity, harbor master has a place for their files, you know, animal control has a place for their
So,
files.
are you thinking at the back of this room?
Yeah, however,
You're
if
gonna
Well,
have
actually-
a full countertop?
Actually, what we had is we had the counter running along the
Oh,
other
this
way,
wall here?
on that wall, yeah,
Okay.
that's what we figured, but if something different needs to be done, we can certainly modify, but.
Well, I think if you two could work that out, because obviously, we have no provisions for tel data in there, phone.
Well, we did, I think there was a
That's right, there was. I
hookup,
looked
there
at
was a
the schematics.
hookup,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
hookup, for the report writing for tel data.
Oh, no, but
We're
I'm
just
saying
taking it over.
within the room.
Right, but we're
We're
just
just swapping from one side of the
relocating.
wall there.
I understand all that, but it depends on the furniture layout, how you're going to configure the room so it's in the right spot.
Yeah, well, we're gonna run all that,
Okay.
we'll have to.
So, John, what input do you wanna have in here so that, is this going to be just a 11-foot workstation that people slide in and slide out, which is what you have out in the hallway? Is that bigger? Or are you going to do a desk with
Since it's,
separate file cabinet?
yeah, since it's not proprietary to any individual, I think just the workbench, you know, what was gonna be in that alcove,
Yeah, that's
just
what
put
we're
inside the
saying.
room as a workplace in a couple of filing cabinets
And a couple of chairs.
and a couple of chairs, and that would be sufficient, you know. The biggest thing is being able to close the door and, you know, and have an interview or to talk to somebody, so that's what we're trying to accomplish. But Zell, just to circle back a little bit, because just for my own clarity,
Yeah.
having to redesign the third floor, is that to accommodate the space of the devices, or is it
Yes,
something?
it can't be added to the space of the current communication area. It has to, it's just a way, it's a function of a couple of different things, but our engineers said that the most practical approach is to put it to the other side of the stair.
As opposed to just making that tech room a little bit deeper?
Yeah, and there's reasons for that. There's ductwork
Oh, sure.
running through in the center of that space, a lot of it. And also there's the rack bringing in the radio lines through those rooms. And this was their recommendation, and I mean, I haven't yet seen their actual drawings for the change, so. But, judging from what they're telling me, I think that it's a logical way to do it.
And sometimes it's better to isolate radio.
Oh, sure, the RFIs you have to worry about,
Start
yeah.
start having
Yeah, so it's.
some conditioning problems.
I think I believe that they're doing the right approach, judging from my discussion with them about it, so.
Why don't we do this, I'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting, provide an update, see where we're at. this is so early on in the project where, I mean, we're at least 45 days from framing, so.
Right, now's the time to figure it out.
Okay, thank you, John. If you turn to the next page in your packet, it is what I think is the last, the most recent proposed sign for the construction site.
I have copies in color in case anybody wants to see them. They're here, but I didn't know if it was necessary, but I brought some.
Why don't, Mike, Jeff, would you like to see? Yeah, good morning.
This one is not, doesn't match the last one. So that's the last one.
Let me do this.
Yeah, this is old, this is not good anymore.
This one?
You have an old version in your packet.
Okay, well
This
then,
is
you
the
know what?
latest, that's the latest. That's how I brought it. Are you sure you have the latest version to review?
If you find that picture.
We don't want to spell Jeff with a J.
Oh, Marge, I like it.
I was afraid someone was gonna draw a mustache onto that because it's me, so he's.
Triple check. It's gonna be up there for a year.
There is nothing worse than having the sign go up and
Yeah,
it's
still catching.
G.R. Colby Chairman or,
Nope.
well, when we go around the table, I mean, looking at it, I think it's fine. I think it identifies the necessary information. The only add you could do would be adding the construction schedule, which is, December of 20, yeah.
That's a.
You do that in Velcro, right?
Yeah,
Just have a whiteboard.
Not a good
Change on a
idea.
what, fork? Yeah.
It opens it up to disappointment.
So, Martha, what are your thoughts? Are you gonna be a final triple check on grammar and
I
spelling?
think that was John.
I nominate Martha.
Yeah, I second that nomination.
I think it covers, it's a piece of plywood, some letters on it, and a pretty picture.
Mhm.
Okay. JR, Jeff, just, Mike? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to accept, there's no date on this, but it's the,
Version 64.
yeah, the latest version.
Move to accept the
Okay,
sign as
second.
proposed.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
We just have to get it down to the contractor so they can
Yeah.
build it.
All in favor?
There is one issue, which is we'll have to coordinate and locate a location for the sign that will be most favorable to everyone. But when the time we can do that, it'll be another week or two.
They'll probably attach it to one side of the trailer to, as the trailer
Well,
moves, the
I
side
don't-
moves, but,
I don't know. It's-
However-
I think
okay.
there may be different opinions about it, so.
All right, moving on to the next item in your packet, it is the 2-week look ahead schedule. Dave, why don't you walk us through that and Sally, you can add comments. It's actually a larger copy if you just, that's it.
So far, nothing's happened as far as, not disposal.
Why don't you give us, John, as I recall, there was a submittal by BC to the Conservation Commission, and that took place last week.
Yep.
Beginning of the week, and
Yeah, that was signed off.
Conservation on what?
Yep,
end of the week.
Yep, yeah, that was signed off, and I think it was actually put in their hands last Tuesday, does that sound right? Tuesday morning, last Tuesday morning?
Okay, so they got it last Tuesday at the sign on?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, from Conscom.
well, I think we can ask the question at the Friday meeting would be.
There's been, so as far as activity on site, drainage material, was delivered Friday. We were told to expect some more drainage material yesterday, which got postponed. So, it's, land surveying foundation layout, that certainly hasn't happened. No excavation. And we're still, as of the end of the day yesterday, site superintendent Chris Farnell was communicating with the project manager Jeff and had not received their ground improvement proposal from the helical driller.
At last Friday's meeting, I wasn't in attendance, but at the previous week's meeting, the geotechnical question that came up, it was requested both our engineer and Helical's engineer get together.
And
I
that
discussed
did take place.
Yeah,
And all of their,
Have they
all
resolved?
their items were resolved, and the,
Okay, is there a copy of what their
no,
solution
there's
was?
nothing in writing.
Yeah, okay.
Because it was all phone calls. However, I know for a fact that the geotech, that I spoke to him, he said that they resolved their issues and Helical was about to submit their proposed, approach to doing it, which would then be obviously reviewed again. I guess everybody's just waiting for that to happen.
So Dave, if you would, and, on Friday's meeting, find out where we are on this 2-week schedule.
Certainly.
And what they plan on doing to get back on schedule. I mean, certainly it's a startup here. Closing out the geotechnical to see what it has for any impact on schedule, costs, certainly, if any.
Yeah, I couldn't say right now without knowing what they're proposing.
There was a conversation about having to go from stone to cement,
Yes, and that seems to be, it's going to probably be a mix of the two
okay.
systems.
My question would be is, if we're changing from the original proposed design,
The original specified design does not dictate, it proposes several options.
okay.
So I'm not certain that there's any cost implications by them doing the different systems. That's an analysis that,
So it's like an unclassified bid, they own it, whatever it has to be.
yeah, it's a design build.
Okay.
For
So
sure.
they own.
Well, then we won't spend any more time on that, if it's
No,
not gonna impact us.
not unless there's some specific reason or something that comes out.
There's been no shortage of discussion between the site contractor, R.J. Pelchat, BC Construction, and Helical Drilling. I know Helical's spoken to McPhail. And I certainly have been on the sidelines of most of that discussion, but, you know, there's nothing definitive to report, so
Yep.
I'll refrain from reporting.
But I think you should have a productive meeting this Friday,
Mhm.
and see where we are on this.
Yeah.
Certainly the knotweed should be addressed immediately, that's
Yeah.
certainly tying up.
Well, one of the things that we would expect on the knotweed is we need documentation where the material's going and how it's getting there. So as a submittal,
I mean, are there actually knotweed disposal sites, or is it just?
apparently,
Yes, apparently. Yeah, there definitely are. I can tell you once again that R.J. Pelchat, and this is all verbal, there's nothing, I've seen nothing in writing, I don't necessarily, and it's all verbal discussion with the GC. But yes, they have located a site that will take the non-reed.
That is in compliance.
That is in, yes, in other words, they've done their research and come up with a
Please
proper
convey
location.
the importance of having the proper paperwork where it's part of our order of conditions.
Okay.
And they've done the first part, which is the submittal on the
Yeah.
process, the disposal and wrap up. It's just critical from a town conservation commission. All right, David, anything you wanna add to the Vertex part of this? Anything you need from the town?
No, nothing I need from the town, no, it's the startup, startup is rolling out slowly, and with snow on the, Martin Luther King Day on Monday, snow on the ground, single digit temperatures have, solidified everything, so, there's been no activity really.
There was, one thing with the drain, the existing drain for the catch basin on
Yes.
Morgan Avenue.
So-
David had mentioned that earlier to me.
So what happens is that as part of the contract documents, there was a requirement to dig a test pit in order to verify the elevation of the storm drain that runs from catch basin in the street down out into the outfall at the pond. That had to be done because the existing survey information could not be established as to the depth of that drain. The reason that the depth needed to be known is we needed to make sure that new equipment that was going in would safely be able to be placed under that drain, and there would be adequate space to cross stuff. And so the test pit was part of the required work, and they did it, but in digging, they hit the pipe and damaged the pipe, and so they are going to replace a portion of the pipe to meet either the requirements of the highway department or code requirements that are currently in place for such work. Because the material was unknown at the time, it's a corrugated aluminum pipe, very thin wall, and that's the reason why it was so easily broken by the backhoe.
You just nicked it with one of the buckets.
And that was enough, it just ripped it right open. So they actually they cut the top off that was damaged so that it could be easily covered and protected temporarily. And they have an approach, the site contractor is supposed to give us their proposed solution of how they're gonna replace it. Now, he is going to check with whoever that pipe belongs to. I'm not sure if it's Newbury or is it Newburyport, I don't know.
I have an update on that.
Oh, okay.
Yesterday, the highway superintendent, James Surratt, was there and
Oh, okay.
viewed the
Yeah.
scene, and his determination was that whole pipe needed to be replaced anyway.
The whole pipe.
And it was bound to fail, probably in short order. So instead, it's a town pipe on town property,
Yeah,
and that drainage pipe doesn't affect the footprint of the building at all.
no,
But he felt that now is the time with the site all open to just replace the whole thing. There were two ways to handle it, either a change order through BC and have that contractor do it, or where it's a town pipe on town property, have the town take care of that. So I put James in touch with Tracy, in touch with the construction guys, and how they're gonna figure it out is up to them. I got the feeling that the town would be handling that, cause the highway department has money in their drainage, catch basin account to do that, and it's work. Instead of 2 years from now when that pipe fails and we're
Yeah.
digging up the new parking lot, now's the time to do it. So I think there's conservation issues that have to happen because of where it drains out, but those are all things that are beyond my pay
Does
scale.
does it drain out beyond the boundaries of our
It
property?
disappears,
The outfall is under,
disappears.
is,
which means
Right.
it's in the pond.
Okay.
right, what Jim Surratt explained to us yesterday,
Yeah.
to, bringing you up to speed on it, Al, was that the depth at which that pipe is
Yeah.
underground, pitches
Yeah.
steeply at the back of the property. The outfall, he knows, he can basically pinpoint where it is, but it's under the muck or underwater current, so, and that was the issue with conservation, that the outfall is actually in the wetlands, in the.
Well, did they have an issue with it being replaced in kind? Would they want to build a new head wall or?
I'll answer
put
that.
it back?
After our meeting Friday, I made a call to, looked up the Public Works number online and
Yeah.
placed a call. Jim Surratt called me right back. Expressed at that point verbally that he'd be out to the site, when he could, first of the week, which he showed up yesterday with the chief.
Yeah.
He had said to me on the phone Friday in discussions that, much as we guessed, nobody was certain how old the pipe was. It was at least 40 or 50 years old. And that it was his personal opinion that he'd follow up, that perhaps now would be the time to replace it. And if he was going to, we'd update it to at least ADS corrugated pipe. RJ Pelchad, site contractor, has worked up a proposal already to BC, which they have.
Okay.
For replacing it with, I think he said SDR 35. Reason being, it's a smaller diameter pipe and would allow for a little more room, leeway, between where that pipe, the invert is, where the test pit was, and the sewer pipe that's gotta go in.
Yeah.
So, smaller diameter pipe might give us some more inches
Sure.
for the
Few
sewer
inches,
pipe.
yeah.
That proposal, the SDR 35, it's a more costly pipe. In a case like this, the labor is most of the cost anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Surratt, didn't think that was really an issue, and as the chief mentioned, believed that they had some money in the budget to take care of that, and they were willing to mobilize and get right to work on that as soon as next week, if it could all be worked out.
So if I break this down so I understand this clearly, BC Construction damaged existing storm drain, which was corrugated, not reinforced concrete. So one, at a minimum, they owe us the repair,
The repair.
replacement of that. The next issue is it's corrugated pipe versus reinforced concrete pipe, which is, what's the ST 35, is that PVC?
PVC.
Okay.
PVC,
Yeah, Schedule 35 PVC.
Yeah.
Which is probably the way to go. So it becomes a quagmire because this is a conservation issue.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a head wall, it becomes one of those issues that why not, and how do you do this so that it's a 50-year solution?
I think that's, I mean, I did have a conversation with our civil engineer about this.
Yeah.
To make sure he was alerted to the fact, and he basically said, well, there's several options that could take place, and enumerated them, and one of them being total replacement, of course, given the nature of the pipe. But now I can certainly relate to him what's been discussed by the town, and see if he thinks there's a reason, or he thinks it makes sense to do something different than just replace the entire pipe. Maybe because we've got two, as you know, we've got two pipes going out in head walls already. Does it make sense to either build another head wall for this pipe, a new one,
Or
does it make-
incorporate it
or
in.
incorporate it into the other drain?
So they memorialized the elevation of the invert on the existing pipe?
Yes,
Correct.
we know where that is, although we only know where it is
At
at
that
that
spot.
point, which was the critical crossing point where we needed to know. We don't know what it is when he gets to the bottom, but again, so I will take this information to them again and see what they recommend doing. Because it may make sense to combine, if
It's possible, yeah.
if that's possible. or, I don't know. We'll see what
I mean,
they-
I would think if we could combine the outflow to the.
It's a best practice issue.
Right.
See, now that you've got a brand new project, now you gotta do something with the existing that was gonna just remain,
Mhm.
but now replacing it doesn't get combined in somehow, or what are the implications of that?
Would it be helpful to invite, James Surratt to the construction meeting on Friday to discuss that, or?
You know, I mean, I think it's really gonna come down to, Mike, is what the engineers
Yeah, I'm gonna try
determine,
to,
and then,
You got
I'll
point
talk
A,
to
you got
him,
point
so I
B,
have,
and you already
I'll
got
talk to him
outlet.
today or tomorrow,
Someone's gotta do some math.
and so I have some information from them
Mhm.
for Friday morning, at least, that, what their opinion is of what should be done.
and if we can incorporate it into one of the existing head walls, the only calculation has to be what impact it has on runoff or flow,
Yeah,
going into the pond. And that would be more of a calculation. than
Where that
anything
open
else.
test pit is, I think that construction trailer moves over that way, so that would prevent that until we resolve this issue.
It
I'm
actually
not,
moves-
I'm not clear on that. I believe, and I know that came up in conversation yesterday, Chief, but from what was relayed to me, the trail is actually
It's actually,
beyond that.
yeah,
test.
it's
Okay,
actually
yes,
back
closer to
on the
Yes,
property.
right.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah,
my
so
only
I don't
concern
know
is
why
if this
that-
takes 3 months, is the whole project at a standstill?
No,
to-
no,
I
no,
know
no,
you all
no,
said that, but
no,
I saw no reason and, you know, made mental note to myself yesterday during that conversation that I would confirm.
Okay.
You know, basically, all right, you know, X marks the spot, where's the trailer actually gonna go? But I think it goes
Speaking,
beyond that.
Excellent.
speaking of the trailer, when are they thinking of actually relocating it? Do you know? Did they say?
No. Short answer is no. And
With regard to the trailer, John, I'm curious, there's a storage container on the gable end of the fireman's
Yeah.
hall.
Right.
Is there any way that could be, I'm not sure, is that fire or police related for storage?
That's fire, they have the half-track stored in there, which is a retired apparatus, I believe.
Okay.
I did talk to the fire chief
If
about
we could temporarily relocate that container to the DPW barn and place the trailer over there on the fire, it would have the least amount of impact on the fire.
Yeah, well, yeah, we didn't know if that trailer was going to be relocated, so I think that the idea was that because it's completely off the property line, so we think, that it wasn't gonna interfere with construction.
I'm saying swap the trailer
No,
for
I
the storage
understand what you're
containers,
saying.
that's what I'm thinking, if that,
My conversation, was that the only thing they needed for access is just to be able to open the door, not to walk in there if they needed to.
well, and I'm saying we wanna swap the footprint with the trailer
Oh, I
for the
see.
storage
All right.
and encroach more on their property. But it would seem that we could temporarily put that during construction down at the DPW or,
Yeah, I don't know if they have for real estate there, but I can definitely look into that. I'll talk to some people today, for sure.
okay, and I think if you guys could talk about that at Friday's meeting, if that's an option, or if it's beneficial.
Well, they're gonna be happy with any, putting that trailer anywhere off the site.
Well, it's a very
As long
tight
as
site,
it's-
it's,
well, and there's some site work, the drainage swale.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's-
yeah.
it's
Right on the
right
property line.
there,
I mean,
yeah.
that container with the half track might have to move
Anyway,
anyway.
so why don't we do it as this, John? We're making a soft request to see if we can relocate that storage unit for the duration of the construction project. Okay, with the intent of utilizing that space for construction needs.
Okay.
Temporary.
And the proximity also might have an adverse effect on some of the construction anyway, yeah, it's really close proximity with the drainage and everything, so. That's already been, floated, so, you know, I mean, that's already been floated as a possibility, so it won't be a shock to anybody.
Okay. All right. That pretty much covers everything we have on our agenda. Why don't we go around the room, Martha, what? Any comments or?
I don't think so. Eileen, did you wanna ask anything about the requisition or?
No, not anything else, but I did wanna know, is there a possibility of getting this in an Excel, the SOV in an Excel format, so that I can utilize it to construct, the accounts and budgets for the signing it in?
Don't, no, I mean, I can ask, usually, I'm not sure that they will issue their Excel,
Alright,
you know what I mean?
Okay, alright,
Because they, I don't know, I can ask.
Oh.
Actually.
I know what you're saying as far as, things
It's a-
get changed.
Well, let's make
it- we'll
make the request that it
They
be an
modify
Excel form.
something,
Yeah,
and you don't,
right, gotcha, okay,
so.
fine,
You might be able to convert it to an Excel. On the PDF, you might be able to.
I can ask Susan, okay,
Yeah,
that's
you
a
can
good
export.
idea, she has that.
Make it a
Export
CSV
it
file.
from- Yeah,
Well, let's ask PC if they will provide the,
Once it's signed.
I would think they would be very cooperative in providing the proper format to get cases.
well, yeah, it's just that
Incentives.
there may be implications with the fact that they're giving out contractual, information that they.
But it's already part of their requisition.
Yes, it is.
You're just asking
but-
that the attachment to the payment application be an Excel.
Yeah, so I don't have to recreate it for myself, yep.
Okay. Let's see if it's possible.
Okay. And we have established that the town requires 2 or 3, I forget now.
Two written copies, one.
Two
signed
Yeah.
original
Two
hard
signed
copies.
original.
I had requested Tracy I had sent Tracy an email to finalize that, 'cause they want a part of our record. But right now, that's the best information we have.
Yep.
I would expect Tracy to,
Two signed.
I talked to
Fine.
her
Two
yesterday,
signed hard
Okay.
copies,
so that's it.
she said that would fly.
Okay.
which means that they will be mailed, so it just adds a little bit of time, a day or two, to the process.
Well, I think that becomes for the permanent record.
Yes,
It's just,
Yeah.
I think the way we're doing this now with the electronic copy,
Right,
like
we
we're
can-
waiting on the letter of recommendation, it's just
Well,
putting all the
Yeah,
documents.
basically what usually happens is when we receive their final that has been notarized and signed by them, we in turn sign it and we'll scan it and send it out to you so that you have it immediately. They will follow, we will then have to mail out the copies,
Okay.
the actual hard.
And the actual hard copies will get to be a pretty big document. Right, it's full back.
Yeah. it's-
Well, those will all be originals with stamps and from the notary.
Yeah.
The waivers.
Okay.
Right, but you can mail it directly to the office, we've got electronic copy, that way the 2 copies, originals can go into it.
I mean, we wanna review the electronic copy to start the process.
Yeah.
And then
No,
just
that's
go.
why I'm saying, but we can be, in order to get it into the flow for payment, we can send our digital copy out so that you have it. And then mail or deliver by hand the hard copy.
Bob, have we set the date for the pencil app, the review period hopefully, and the turnaround Zell, so that then it gets mailed out and everything is on sequence on a monthly basis, more or less
Yeah.
within a day or two every month of being the same thing?
You know what, I think that it's a great question. A couple of points. It will be how we schedule, I mean, today's meeting was really a placeholder just to review the record if it was ready. Where it's the first one, I think we're being lenient and not having everything in hand, hence why it's conditional. John, how do the pay periods work? A normal meeting date is on Friday. The thought was that we did payment review on Wednesdays. It's easy to get a quorum, and it goes off to procurement during the work week and not at the end of the work week. How do the pay warrants lay out? How do the pay warrants lay out for,
I can tell you here.
so it's usually tied to selectmen's second and fourth.
So the next
Tuesday.
warrant is payment is next week and it's due tomorrow. So this is an invoice for Vertex and it's gotta be into Ellen or Eileen for tomorrow to get the warrant on the 30th. So the next one will be the second week of February.
Okay.
So if we did a requisition in the first week of the month, we'd be sure to get it to them to be in the warrant in the middle of the month. certainly no later than the end of the month,
Okay.
if we can make that work, to work backwards.
So if BC had gotten all their paperwork in on time, this could have went into tomorrow's warrant.
Right.
So there's still some follow-on documentation that will be generated, so they'll make the first
So
warrant.
within
in
2 weeks, we
February.
should have everything, maybe that can start the roll.
Okay.
And what's,
Let them know that, I mean, they got a conditional approval, but it doesn't really move the ball forward for payment until all the
what's
documentation.
important to the CM is the
It was
monthly.
explained to them on January
Consistency.
Yeah, no,
that this meeting was
It's always
scheduled
very,
specifically.
very deliberate
And
in
I remember
his.
that quite clearly, you know, I can tell you that Steve has brought that up repeatedly
Mhm.
in verbal
No,
conversations with
it's always,
PC.
unfortunately, it is like pulling teeth. It always has been.
It will
I
never
don't know
change.
why- I don't know why it's so hard.
So back to Eric's original question, do we want to set up a protocol for pencil draft by the 25th, so we review it the first week of the month?
Yes,
and get
yes.
it to the
definitely.
middle?
No,
And if they're
Contract-
late, they're late.
Contract calls for Zell to have 10 days to review this and approve it.
normally we don't
submitting
need, we don't need that kind of
Right, but I mean,
time,
that's, the contract
think
document
about it,
states
it's-
very clearly,
Yeah,
they have to submit that 10 days in advance.
yeah.
I would say the
That never
15th,
happened.
I'd like to have the middle of the month, because once it gets set up, it then gives us an opportunity to hit the second warrant of the month.
Mhm.
I think that what's critical, I think most critical, is that if you have a preferred schedule that you want to keep, we just tell them this is a must do. Here's when the rec has to be in, the
I'm
pencil
saying
rec has
that
to
on
be
that.
in.
What is that
On
on
the-
the,
on the
Tell them.
14th of every month, but whatever it is, and then 10 days later, the final, or whatever, or 5 days later, I don't know, they're just,
what were our original meeting dates, the first
First
and
Friday of the
third?
month.
And we had 2 meetings a month. First and fourth, was that?
Well, before?
When we were doing the design phase of the meeting, yeah.
it was bi-weekly.
Yeah, first and third.
Okay. Well, what we probably ought to do is tentatively publish in a notice for the first and third. We can cancel a meeting if we need it, but, so,
Well, are you saying that you wanna have the option, you wanna have the 2 meetings? so
well,
that
I
cover
think one
either-
meeting may be just to pick up the pay rec. The other meeting could simply be project changes or project discussions. I mean, we should be able to get this done in 1 meeting a month, but why don't we anticipate 2 meetings a month? So first and third, John, that was,
Sorry, because my second Friday is booked up, so.
okay.
And do we wanna do Fridays, or we wanna do Wednesdays? 'Cause Eric's
I have a
conflicts.
starting to have a meeting for a project on Fridays in Hopkins,
Okay.
which is at 8:30. There's no way to get here to there.
So what day, I mean, it doesn't matter, does Wednesday work better?
Wednesdays work great for me.
Wednesday, it's working at the moment.
Okay, I think the only one, Steve has a,
This was an isolated incident, I believe, as far as time conflicts on Wednesdays, and scheduled.
I thought he was Wednesdays and Thursday were, he had a pretty reoccurring, yeah.
We talked, and I'll speak to him
Okay.
after this, but no, I don't think so. I think going forward, Wednesday's okay. This was a scheduled meeting from a month or so ago.
So why don't we entertain the first and third Wednesday of the month? Well,
So,
I guess, so we have to,
no, it's whatever works, no, I can make, whatever works, but I think that what you have to decide is which one of those you want the pay recs. I would imagine it would be the latter, because.
or it's just gonna be the overlap of the previous month as the first.
Well, here's, for practical reasons, this pay rec is towards the end of this month, so the next one is, you wanna give them some time, you don't want them to try to come up with a pay rec in another few weeks, right? So you give them the time so that
So this
they
is
catch the next
establishing the
meeting.
sequence.
Yes, So it could, if we require the next pay rec to be, I don't know, a few days before your meeting.
The third, if this is the third Wednesday of the month, so this is kind of the flow
Yeah.
for
Right.
the end of the month of
Right.
warrant.
So let's just pull up the calendar here and see what we have. Alright, so for February, the first Wednesday would be the 5th.
Right.
And the third Wednesday would be the 19th, so 2/19. That's Wednesday. So,
That's the third
third Wednesday is the 19th.
Okay.
So actually, that works out pretty well, because we'll target the third Wednesday of the month for payment apps. But they need to have, we
Second
need to
Wednesday,
have,
just have, can you just establish, is that too ambitious, just the second Wednesday of the month is when it has to be submitted?
Yeah, middle of the month.
Right, they would do their pencil draft the week before.
Yeah.
So,
So when it comes
just
to
let
us,
them
it's
know,
basically.
second Wednesday, that's it,
Yeah.
it's on them.
Or, waste of night.
Yep.
That's all.
well, otherwise, it's gonna be a conditional approval, which is not speeding the process.
No.
I'd say better off to have it.
That's another cog that we really don't need.
Okay.
If-
Okay,
I'm used to be run around, make sure everything's in hand and dropped off. That's just been approved.
it's the most important thing we do as contractors.
Usually
Usually the most
Excellent.
efficient thing we do is payment requisition. Okay, I think that, so what I'll do is I will post those, and obviously, there's going to be times we won't need both meetings. So the third Wednesday will be our regular meeting. The first Wednesday will be a placeholder if it's needed. Okay?
So the communication to BC is that their pencil draft, we need it, the second one, by the second Wednesday of the
Yeah.
month.
We will relay that to them on
Okay.
Friday.
And then what will happen is, once we approve it, they'll send in the final, all the lien waivers or whatever's appropriate to go with that. Don't you guys-
Usually lien waivers aren't necessary, unless you wanna make them necessary for each payroll. Because all the lien waivers come in at the end of the job, all of the subs have to, that's usually a condition of closeout.
True.
Now, if for some reason if there's extenuating circumstances that would cause the town to want the lien waivers every time, I don't know, that's.
I think he's closing out subcontractors through the process that he would want when that sub is done and.
Absolutely.
That's what,
paid,
I mean,
so-
that is a condition of closeout, we have to have.
Right, no, that's given
So
anyway.
the subcontractors come to,
Yeah.
same guy that comes on right
Yeah,
before the end, and
it's-
so before he's paid or close to being paid, that should be double checked.
Good. I guess it's up to the town what they wanna do. A lot of private work usually, especially the same at risk, you usually get a lien waiver if you go. Usually,
Okay. Favorite.
yeah.
I'll check and see if we, I'll check this back, but see if we actually.
So
Otherwise
it's
it'd be just
proposed,
the BC's lien
it's
waiver.
first and third, are be our meeting dates. Second Wednesday is their date. Otherwise, it just spills over to the first, it just goes to the first of the month, so. Okay, all right, so what do we have, John? We have an open invoice for
Vertex,
for Vertex.
that's the only one that was available.
Okay.
Now, we'll need to get a number, a lien for BC to put on their request for payment.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
If you send
remember.
that to me, I'll set that up.
Right,
Okay.
David, please remind Stephen that he owes me letters of recommendations for the previous month's invoices.
Okay.
And catch up on this payment requisition, one for BC.
Comment I made that we bought briefly was that, would it be better for Steve's gonna make the recommendation for payment, that he do all this, we approve it, and he ships it to the town? Or do we I'll keep doing this, but he's gonna do the summary sheet?
Yeah, I mean, we're the first step in approval.
Right.
So our owner's project manager owns transmittal and compliance for review of procurement.
So we would do this as we normally do and hand it off to him and
That's correct.
puts his cover sheet, okay, no problem. So I'll do that.
Because we need original documents for the record and for his letter of recommendation. So,
Great. So we'll do that with the requisition from DC and then I'll hand it off to him.
okay. I mean, Dave, that's pretty standard. I mean, that would be the normal. You guys own all the paperwork. That's. All right. So let's go around the table. Is anything else before we go around the table for last word?
The only thing I'm waiting for, so just so I'm clear on that modification of that, I'm just waiting to hear back assessment as to what that change would bring.
Yeah, no, we're.
Something I need to be doing.
We have to.
With regard to cost and schedule, impact of
Well,
the
two
bank.
things have to happen. We will generate all of the required drawing modifications and issue those to DC for pricing. But at the same time, we will also issue it to the committee for you to review, to make sure everything makes sense to you.
Sure, okay, so,
Because if you have any comments about it, we may modify a few things. Yeah, we'll get that out as soon as it's all put together.
Martha, any comments, concerns? John?
I thought it was my turn, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Well, no, we do a reset. We had a talk, we gotta go back. Chief?
The only thing that is on our plate is to talk with the fire chief about moving that container.
That'd be good. I think that would be very helpful to the project.
They've been real supportive, I don't see it as being a big issue, it's just logistical.
How we handle it. Eric?
All good?
John?
The advertisement bill, your comment back to them is that they'll take care of it?
Well, no, my question is, we don't have a legal advertising line item, and it would seem to me that it would follow our town council who did the contract review, and it would come under, we have a line item for professional services at the town level, that it would be. It would seem, well, it's a question back. We don't have a line item to address that. And so I'm reluctant to look at it at this point. And I just think it's something that procurement should look at. And it, being a former member of the finance committee, I know we have a professional services line account, which would seem more appropriate for that.
Good, I won't do anything further.
If that changes, it's just, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you, everyone.